Slurpee.
It's that time of year again, where I talk about all the games that came out this year that I enjoyed in some way, and do my best to not be negative. There are certainly a lot of games to talk about, so I'll just briefly go over how I do things around here in case you're new, and then we'll get to talking about some games. I'm going to talk about a variety of games that I played, tried, or watched someone else play this year in alphabetical order, giving you my thoughts on the games and offering little extra rewards on the corner here. Things like Best RPG, Best Remake, that sort of thing. This isn't everything I played, tried, or watched someone else play, and Lord knows I wish there were some games I had the chance to play more of. But these are the ones that I feel I have the most to say about at this time, so this is what you get. There's a bunch of games I want to talk about 18 of them to be precise, so I'm going to stop dawdling because I have a lot to edit with this one and about 19 other videos that I want to make, so let's just get things started. There are certainly no shortage of games that stick around for years at a time, staying relevant with new updates and content to keep old players in, and titillating new bits to bring new players into the experience. But sometimes a game has a chance to emerge from the shadows of obscurity after being there for way too long. And undoubtedly, this year's surprise turnaround has got to be Among Us. A deceptively simple game of werewolf, or Secret Hitler, or whatever you want to call it, mixed with John Carpenter's The Thing as presented by Newgrounds. Players take the role of a crewmate doing tasks around a space station or research center, while someone among them is an imposter. The imposter's job is to kill every one of the crewmates before they can complete all of their tasks, but it's not as simple as just chasing them down and doing the dark, dirty deed. Anytime a player's dead body is found or the emergency button around the center of the map is pressed, players will enter a discussion phase, where they have a brief amount of time to accuse one another and provide evidence for why they may be innocent, all in the hopes of casting someone out that they may think is the imposter. The gameplay is very simple, which makes sense because this is a mobile-friendly title after all, but the real fun is playing with friends and finding out who among you is the best actor. The folks at Inner Sloth have crafted a game that capitalized on the feelings of isolation we've all kind of been subjected to this year, and even if coming together means casting our friends into a pool of lava or out into the vacuum of space, it's worth at least a few laughs. Speaking of a game that came out at the perfect time, Animal Crossing New Horizons really came out and helped keep people sane for months on end with its simple gameplay and cute aesthetic. With plenty of new and improved features that help expand upon the foundation set by New Leaf on the 3DS, New Horizons uses these new ideas to help bring a better overall experience, I feel. But it still falls short in enough places that it's hard to stay focused on this one for too long. With new tools that allow you to terraform your space and a whole new crafting system, players are able to spend hours upon hours just building their island to their liking. Combine all this with the ability to visit multiple islands to gather resources and new villagers, and you have a lot of stuff to do. But alongside that, you're basically stuck doing the same old Animal Crossing stuff. Fishing, bug hunting, decorating, pulling weeds, talking to villagers. It's a lot of tedious work as always, and sadly the new features don't really make for a drastically improved experience. Now, don't get me wrong, the game is still fun, but the only reason I've ever been invested in the game again recently is because I completely started my island over in an attempt to feel like I'm working towards something again. If there was more to do outside of just daily chores, I would probably find myself logging into the game more often. But as it stands, outside of mostly lackluster seasonal events, there isn't much a reason for me to come back to this game just to pull weeds or hear the same 5 lines of dialogue from one of my villagers yet again, especially when I have 2 other great games on my Switch already. It's an undoubtedly fun game, but not quite the perpetual experience I had hoped it would be. Still, it was great to return to a series that I fell in love with on the 3DS, and even if it was for only a few months, that's certainly better than nothing. I've said it before and I will say it again. Astrobot Rescue Mission is easily one of my favorite games available exclusively on the PlayStation VR, and when I heard that Astro's Playroom would be a pack-in title for the PlayStation 5, I was excited. On top of being an excellent showcase of what the DualSense controller is capable of, the game is a fantastically fun celebration of PlayStation's history in gaming. But I already made 2 whole videos talking about why this game is great, so go check those out after this is done to hear my thoughts on the game. Just know that this game has become one of my all-time favorite PlayStation games, and I personally hope that we get to see more of Astrobot soon outside of just tech demos. I eagerly awaited to see what young horses would follow up Octodad Dadliest Catch with, and during the initial PlayStation 5 reveal livestream, we finally got a sneak peek at their next title, Bugsnax. The reveal trailer didn't really show much outside of fruit bugs and Muppet people, and my speculation ran wild with potential possibilities for what this game could ultimately be. What we got, however, was an odd yet intriguing mixture of Pokemon Snap, the Island of Dr. Moreau, and Therapy Simulator 2020 that all comes together in the end to be something weird, yet memorable. As a reporter for some nameless newspaper, players travel to the mysterious Snacktooth Island in search of Lizbert Megafig, a disgraced explorer who sent you a film strip about her findings on said island. When you arrive, however, Lizbert has gone missing, and those left behind have all scattered to the farthest corners of the island, and it's up to you to bring them all together by helping them with their needs, repairing friendships, and most of all, bringing them delicious bug snacks. The game is very different from its initial reveal trailer than I thought it would be, but it's still a fun and quirky game that I'm very glad I played. I would love to say more, but this is one of those games that I feel is better played on your own and experienced for yourself, since a lot of the game involves building relationships with the residents of Snacktooth Island and figuring how to catch each of the 100 mostly unique bug snacks scattered around the island. If nothing else, more people buying the game means Young Horses gets more money to keep making fun and quirky games. And I hope that they might actually become a part of the PlayStation Worldwide Studio someday just to get the support that they deserve. Plus, the theme song is catchy as all heck, and I would absolutely eat a Strabby in real life despite knowing full well what it is and why I shouldn't want to do that. So there's that too, I guess. I was optimistically skeptical of this newest entry into the Crash Bandicoot franchise when it was first announced, but as more was revealed and I finally got my hands on it, I can say I'm pleasantly pleased with how Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time turned out. The gameplay feels as snappy and precise as the original entries did, and all the improved rendering capabilities of modern day hardware makes this easily one of the best looking entries in the franchise. Sadly, this game is also marred by one of Crash Bandicoot's oldest problems: precision challenges. Throughout most of the game, players will simply jump, spin, slide, and ride their way through platforming levels, all of which are incredibly detailed and feature some fantastic design. That said, many of the levels feel twice if not 3 times as long as levels from previous games, and while that can be attributed to better technology and design philosophies, it also makes other parts of the game that much more infuriatingly difficult. Time trials become incredibly long ventures for even a single level, and if you're looking to get the best times, you can sometimes spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours just getting good enough at some sections of a level, only to then have another half of it to complete. Granted, this is only really a problem for completionists like me, but a lot of the best content in this game is hidden behind these completionist criteria, so take that how you will, I guess. Aside from that though, the game is an absolute blast to enjoy if you're just a casual player, even if you'll only have a few hours with it. Once I stopped trying to get everything as I usually do in most games, and instead focused on how this one played, the game offered me a lot of new and exciting things to the franchise. The flashback levels are fun little added puzzles that give us a bit more lore to the series. Most of the new playable characters feel fun to control and make good use of their unique setups, and each of the new mask powers and platforming features like grind rails are all fun. It's an incredibly fun game with a very difficult depth to it, and if you're a fan of the series, definitely give this one a look if you haven't already. If nothing else, let's just hope that Activision doesn't wait another 22 years to give us something with our favorite orange marsupial. It's honestly criminal that it took them this long. Sometime in the middle of 2019, I had the chance to relive one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games anew, thanks in part to the PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 4 program of games available on PS4, Destroy All Humans. A silly and poorly aged title, it was nice to have a chance to relive a game from my youth on a modern console, eventually leading me to get the Platinum Trophy for the game despite how frustrating that was. Then, earlier in 2020 in July, I got the chance to relive it all over again, but with a few noticeable improvements thanks to Destroy All Humans, the remake. Much of what made the original game fun is still here, but now the experience includes a whole host of quality of life fixes and additions to make for a more well-rounded experience. The developers thankfully knew what they needed to remove and what they should keep. The majority of the dialogue and voice acting from the original is used for this remake, offering at least some semblance of authenticity to the whole experience. Hearing these classic lines with newly remastered cutscenes and gameplay helps to elevate the experience, making it easily one of my favorite remakes of the year, but not the best. The remake suffers from many of the same problems as the original, even with the quality of life fixes. Most notably in terms of the story and its often harsh portrayal of stereotypes. Beyond that though, I experienced several technical issues that hampered my progress, including when I would complete a mission only for the game to crash and not save my progress, forcing me to redo the mission sometimes more than once on a single mission. There's also a noticeable uptick in difficulty in some parts of the game, so as I tried to earn the Platinum Trophy on this one, it took quite a bit longer, despite them changing what was required for the Platinum. Aside from that though, the experience is still fun to play, and if you're a fan of the original, it holds up to that gameplay surprisingly well. If you want to relive the original with a fresh coat of paint, there are certainly worse ways of going about doing that. When Doom 2016 initially came out, I was skeptical. Ramping up the graphics and gameplay of Doom has been attempted before to mixed results, and this new game looked like it offered a lot of flash and confusion. But once I had my hands on the game, I found that it was an impressive display of fast-paced, gore-laden combat encounters with strategic elements, and it quickly rocketed up to being one of my favorite games of 2016. But now we have its follow-up in Doom Eternal, and much of what made the original great has been improved upon here. As per usual with a Doom game, Doom Eternal's story really doesn't matter. All you need to know is that people are stupid, hell is bad, and Doom Guy kicks a lot of ass, and you'll be just fine with this experience because what matters is the gameplay. And much like the experience released in 2016, Doom Eternal cranks up the carnage and delivers an absolute powerhouse of an experience. Improvements to combat don't just stop at the way the guns feel, but with new additions that help give the player more strategy in fights than ever before. Shoulder-mounted flamethrowers, shotgun underslung grappling hook, and the arm blade all help the player to slice, shoot, smash, and separate the hordes of the demonic undead, and makes for an experience that's as pulse-pounding as the incredible soundtrack that carries you through it. The game lags a little bit with platforming sections and puzzle solving, and the multiplayer mode is relatively fun, but also very repetitive. But when the game delivers the carnage, that's when it's at its best. If you're looking for a fast-paced shooter with incredible music, incredible graphics, and a hell of a lot of carnage, you're not going to find one better than this that released in 2020. The concept of a platforming battle royale is something I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen much more of up to this point. But if Fall Guys becomes the template to follow, I'm really not complaining. The adorable art style, incredibly tense, often down-to-the-wire gameplay, and unique bundle of games all contribute to an experience that's equal parts silly, challenging, and fun, all wrapped up into an experience that's presented as if it were a game show for bipedal beings. The game isn't perfect though, and even now in Season 3, there are still some significant issues that persist with this one. Constant connection issues that lead to teleporting beans and ghost grabs for some games, where someone can appear a few feet away but still manage to snag your tail or grab that egg before you can. Players dropping out of team games when it seems like it's all is lost, despite there still being time usually rings the death bell for those left behind. And above all else, there's still no clear literature or menu that states how many kudos or experiences awarded when you inevitably end your gauntlet, leading to a progression system that doesn't really feel rewarding and often feels like a roll of the dice in terms of whether or not you feel properly compensated for your performance, regardless of if you win or lose. Aside from these issues though, which in the grand scheme of play are minor, the game itself offers enough unique challenges and nail-biting suspense to keep players coming back for more. And with the team at Mediatonic churning out more content consistently and having a fairly strong online presence, this game is likely going to stick around for quite a while and stand tall alongside Fortnite as a go-to battle royale experience. Sucker Punch is best known for Sly Cooper and the infamous franchises. So when rumors swirled that a Sony studio was going to craft a Spider-Man game, I was almost positive that they were going to be the ones to do it. Between Sly Cooper's gadgets and Infamous's, whole superpowers thing, it made sense to me. But then it was revealed that Insomniac was going to be making that game and did a fantastic job doing it, and that Sucker Punch was instead making Ghost of Tsushima. And my initial reaction was, okay. Ghost of Tsushima has players experiencing the story of Jin Sakai, the last of the samurai on the island of Tsushima, facing off against the Mongol army. Through the help of others on the island and Jin's years of training as a samurai, the player will try to wrestle control away from the invading horde in order to save his home, but to do this, he has to bend his samurai code just enough to take on an impossible threat. Utilizing both the tools of the samurai and the various other tools that you acquire throughout your journey, you become the ultimate assassin. Yeah, that's right, you just saunter on off out of here. There's a new assassin in town. And he's named after booze. The gameplay and presentation are honestly the biggest highlights of this game. The combat is tense and threatening, with multiple encounters overwhelming players who don't utilize every ability that Jin possesses or deal with enemies in an appropriate, tactful manner. Learning to balance incoming enemies and how to dispatch them are vital to survival. And thanks to the minimalistic presentation of the game, the whole game feels like a samurai film. And Sucker Punch knows this, even going so far as to offer an optional play mode that changes things to look just like an Akira Kurosawa film. While I may have been initially surprised that Sucker Punch was making this over a Spider-Man game, this game works fantastically as the PlayStation 4's swan song. A fantastically built, story-driven narrative that focuses on presentation and artistry above all else, Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best gaming experiences released this year. It's a beautifully told story that fits right alongside some of the other great Sony exclusive titles, and one that I know I will be returning to someday soon. Supergiant Games are best known for Bastion and Transistor. Two games that were very well received critically and have significant fan followings, but games that didn't really find an audience with me. So when the studio released Hades on the Nintendo Switch in early December, I initially gave the game a pass. Sure, it had an interesting art style and was getting rave reviews from friends and people online, but both Bastion and Transistor had those advantages, and they didn't hook me. I'm glad to say that that trend did not continue with Hades. Hades follows a somewhat unique concept for a roguelike, in that you dying is not an inherently bad thing. Rather than just having you reset your progress from the beginning with some incremental upgrades to help you maybe get a little bit further than your previous run, Hades tells the story of Zagreus, the previously unknown son of Hades, the god, not the place, who wants to escape the confines of hell. To do this, he must traverse the many realms of the House of Hades, both the god and you get it. Utilize various weapons from Greek myth and accept the aid of a colorful cast of gods, legends, monsters, and more. All of whom are brilliantly written and have become some of my most recent favorite characters in gaming. Hades' frantic and often chaotic combat is one of the main highlights of this game. And Supergiant managed to craft an experience that's welcoming to players new to the roguelike genre, while having an incredible depth for those of us who've delved into the depths of many a game before. Each of the game's weapons feels incredibly unique from one another, and combined with keepsakes you can acquire throughout your journey that give you slight advantages each run, and boons you receive from the gods of Olympus that augment your current arsenal, it all makes for a fun, well-written, and excellently crafted game. If you're like me and didn't enjoy any of Supergiant's previous works, I highly recommend giving Hades a second look. What I found here was an engaging, fantastically executed roguelike that quickly stole hours of my life after that initial enthralling run through the underworld, and it's one that even now that I've gotten through to the ultimate goal of reaching the surface, I will still dive into to find even more waiting for me. It's a fantastic experience that should be played, and rightly deserves all of the praise it's been getting. Check it out for yourself if you're skeptical. It was a welcome surprise for me to say the least, and has easily become one of the contenders for my game of the year. I did a whole video talking about why I enjoyed this game back in June, so I'll be brief in talking about this like I did with Astro's Playroom. Minecraft Dungeons is a stripped down and child-friendly version of Blizzard's Diablo with at least a little bit of depth, and ultimately it's a fun game to lose yourself to for a few hours of mindless mob-killing fun. But why I want to talk about it a little bit more here is that the DLC has since come out, improving the game fairly significantly. Instead of just dropping your armor for something with better stats every few minutes, now you can keep your favorite pieces of armor, weapons, and all of that, and upgrade them with the blacksmith. And with new mobs and environments to explore, it offers a good portion more than the original package did, which I felt already had a satisfactory amount of content to begin with. This one is still very much baby's first Diablo, but it's one that I personally enjoyed my time with. I probably won't spend much more time with this until more DLC is released, but I'm eager to see how the studios behind it improve upon this formula for a potential sequel. When I was growing up, I would watch all manner of cartoons. Codename Kids Next Door, Courage the Cowardly Dog, SpongeBob SquarePants, Kim Possible, and a whole lot more. But among the cartoons that I watched growing up that have only gotten better with age, undoubtedly Samurai Jack is the best one, thanks in large part to Genndy Tartakovsky being able to finish this series thanks to Adult Swim. It was a perfect send-off for an iconic character, and yet the story didn't quite end there like we thought it did. In Samurai Jack Battle Through Time, Aku manages to intercept Jack and Ashi's attempt to return to the past, and instead sends Jack into a purgatory of Aku's own making, where time is irrelevant and he still reigns supreme. Now Jack must face the worst of his foes and even some of his greatest allies in combat, making use of an arsenal of melee and ranged weapons to return to the normal timeline and finish the task he started so many years ago. In terms of gameplay, the combat is very basic hack and slash with some simple puzzles and easy platforming thrown in. But all of the enemies and characters are beautifully realized in 3D, offering an overall experience that feels more like a Samurai Jack fanfiction than an actual continuation of the story. Each of the voice actors returns to their roles for this one though, making for some very well written fanfiction. And in general, it's one of the best licensed games to come out this year. There are certainly better samurai games. I mean, hell, 2 other samurai games came out this year, but there is only one Samurai Jack. Unless you count The Shadow of Aku for PlayStation 2, or The Amulet of Time for Game Boy Advance. And then there's those appearances he made in the Cartoon Network crossover. You know what? Let's just move on. Spiderman for PlayStation 4 was easily one of the best games to come out on that system. And with the release of the PlayStation 5 came a smaller, but just as spectacular experience in the form of Spider-Man Miles Morales. The game uses a lot of the same building blocks that the first game created, but condenses things down into a smaller, slightly more manageable experience, and gives us control of a whole new Spider-Person with his own slew of unique and incredible abilities to boot. Months after the Devil's Breath incident of the first game, Peter is set to join MJ on an overseas trip to Symkaria, leaving Miles with the keys to the castle in defending New York from potential threats. Because while the Avengers may have a tower and Doctor Strange has his Sanctum Sanctorum, they apparently don't ever have anything to do in New York, so we're left with Miles. As if by sheer coincidence or typical comic book writing, 2 major threats come out of the woodwork just in time for Miles' first time alone, as he happens to be developing 2 new powers that you enhance and learn about throughout the game. While Miles may not use as many gadgets to take on baddies as Peter does, his new abilities more than make up for that, as he's taking on the militaristic might of Roxxon and the mysterious menace known as the Underground, led by the Tinkerer. Miles' venom power and invisibility give him a lot more versatility in how to dispatch hordes of foes, leading to almost every combat situation feeling like you can literally do what a spider can. Want to be stealthy when taking out these foes? You can, but at the same time, you can just wallop on them to your heart's content, and thanks to the power of the PlayStation 5 and his more area of effect attacks that he can utilize, there are more enemies to dispatch this time around, so it comes in handy. Spider-Man Miles Morales works as a fantastic launch title, a great follow-up to the Spider-Man PlayStation 4, and as a sort of prequel for what's to potentially come from Insomniac and Marvel next. Literally my only complaint with this game is that even after doing a New Game Plus playthrough, it is sadly short. But I bought the Ultimate Edition, and I'm making my way through Spider-Man Remastered at the moment. So I still have plenty of Spidey goodness to tide me over, and I'm just going to bring it up here. His new face doesn't bother me. Anyone who complains about it, that is bad. Also, Spider-Cat is the best addition to this universe, and I will not hear otherwise. He is precious, and I love him. One of my favorite game genres to play when I just want to relax is puzzle games. Just sitting back, analyzing everything in front of you to find a solution, and then executing upon it gives me a constant dose of serotonin, and sometimes after a long day, it's nice to just give my brain some thinking puzzles to work through. Then there are puzzle games like Superliminal that have more in common with the Stanley Parable or Portal in that they not only give me interesting puzzles to solve, but also fundamentally make me rethink everything I know about reality. Superliminal has you, the player, using a special machine that effectively works as therapy through dreams. As you move deeper and deeper into the subconscious, the voices of an artificial intelligence program and the doctor helping you constantly interject to tell you about how things aren't going as they should, but by continuing forward, you should hopefully come out of it alright. Going forward takes the form of various stages where things aren't always what they seem, and are most certainly not going alright, and the only way through is to shift your perspective in a number of ways to keep moving forward. Picking up a chess piece and making it larger than it appears in perspective. Cloning doors until you can form a ramp that leads up over a wall. Stepping into the shadows towards a wall only to find that there actually isn't a wall there, and instead, that's the path forward. All of these systems and more come into play as you traverse the dreamscape. And by the end, I had a stranger appreciation for perspective puzzles, and subsequently warping my perception of reality by forcing me to creative paradox. So yeah, I'd say it was a fun experience. A little short, if I'm being honest, since you can beat the main game in about 2 to 3 hours, but overall I enjoyed myself. Give it a look for yourself if you can find the right angle to do so from, if it sounds interesting to you. Video games have always had more of an emotional impact for me than any other medium. Flower was the first game I ever played where I felt myself finally understand the concept of what makes a video game art. Majora's Mask helped a younger me to come to grips with the fragility of time, and how making as much of an impact on the lives of those around me as I can is the best way to spend my time here on this planet. And I can't even begin to describe how many characters I've felt an emotional attachment to throughout the many, many hours I've played games. While I've had my fair share of emotion-driven moments playing games this year, the one that stands out to me the most has to be the Pathless. What makes this game particularly unique isn't just its very spiritual story, but the bond that you develop with your hawk companion and the means by which you traverse the island. As you run around the island unlocking shrines to try and free corrupt beasts, you use your incredible skills as an archer to target and fire at talismans scattered all around, giving you the ability to dash around the world at great speed. Occasionally though, you'll be interrupted by one of the corrupted beasts, forcing you and your hawk to be apart as they're lost to the wind, and you must avoid the gaze of the creature you're trying to save as you reunite with your companion to continue your journey of healing. What makes the Pathless so incredible to me isn't just that the game is simple yet fun to play, and that the art style is gorgeous. Creative director Matt Nava has stated that the Pathless is about finding your way forward, and every decision they made in creating the game helps enforce that decision. And with all the turmoil, pain, and hatred we've had this past year, the game instead focuses on revitalizing those corrupted by hatred and about bringing together those that matter most. It is an absolutely beautiful experience of a game, and one that I feel will stick with me long after I put the controller down on this one for the final time. Plus, any game that lets me have a bird companion friend, I automatically love. And the hawk in this game, the fact that you can pet his feathers to wipe away the sadness is just, it's perfect. Watch Dogs is one of those series that I've enjoyed since its inception, but always felt like it didn't quite live up to the full potential that it promised. Not to say that the gameplay isn't fun, but the main focus of the experience is hacking the planet. And yet somehow the series feels more invested in making a Grand Theft Auto with phone magic instead. Watch Dogs Legion adds another layer onto that already somewhat underutilized formula by allowing players to become almost anyone they encounter in a semi-futuristic London. But, much like the lackluster hacking, the game falls short in a still kind of fun way. As you gather a small army of individuals to take on the forces of London, each one requests that you do a quest of sort for them, to prove your worth and to convince them to join DedSec. But the game only really has like 5 or 6 variations on the same quest line, leading to very repetitive quests that usually involve you going to a location, hack the thing, or dispatch an enemy and then leaving. While this can make some of the more unique quest lines that much more memorable, like when I had to drive a car into the Thames for an old lady who was a former art thief, it leaves the game lacking any real depth for its core selling point. If anything, I'm just upset that this series I enjoy playing didn't do much more than add a flashy new coat of paint onto a system that hasn't really changed much since its original iteration. Being able to play as anyone is nice, but it feels less rewarding and you don't feel like your character in particular has grown. The story is drawn out and a bit cliche, but fits the overall tone of the game. And other than a few problems with the trophies in the game, I still had fun with it. I'm hoping that going forward the team behind this can iterate and improve what they've made here, because it's a good framework for something truly great, but just needs that little extra something to get it there. The game is still a lot of fun to play, and I enjoyed my time with it for the most part. But I wish there was something more to keep me interested in this one outside of potentially getting the Platinum trophy now on the PlayStation 5 version. I'm always a little apprehensive whenever a game I enjoy announces they're making some big shift to how the game is played, especially when that shift is them making a Battle Royale version of it. But Worms Rumble is honestly a happy exception. Taking the normally turn-based combat of Worms and translating it into a side-scrolling twin-stick shooter makes a lot of sense. And while I personally have an aversion to Battle Royale type games, I have had a lot of fun blasting my way through the silly carnage of Worms Rumble. I mean, what do you expect from a Battle Royale game where one of the weapons literally has you launching exploding sheep? The game's primary focus is being a Battle Royale experience, but it does offer a training mode to introduce players to the controls and a standard deathmatch mode to give players an idea of how these weapons work in live fire situations. After getting yourself a feeling of how the game works, you can tackle Last Worm Standing either on your own or with up to 2 friends in tow, with the ultimate goal of obviously being to best the competition like your standard Battle Royale experience. Personally, I enjoy this game much more when I'm just playing deathmatch. But playing the game in any mode is surprisingly strategic, insanely fun, and full of a lot of tense moments filled with laughter that fans of the series shouldn't give this one a miss, just because it changes the formula so drastically. I'm glad that this year gave us 2 surprisingly unique Battle Royale experiences in the form of this and Fall Guys, and I truly hope that going forward, the genre can expand beyond just another Fortnite clone. And that, my friends, is that. Another year gone and several games played, though you may have noticed a few key games that didn't make this list. For one reason or another, there were plenty of games that I played this year and didn't enjoy, ones that I skipped out on because I knew I might not enjoy them, and others still that I felt I either didn't have anything to say or just didn't personally care for. Hell, there were even a few I wanted to talk about, but didn't really have any easy access or time to play them. This doesn't make any of them bad games by any means, just ones that I personally felt I either didn't play enough of or ones I didn't want to play in the first place. But just because your favorite game didn't make it onto this list doesn't make it any less important or special. You may also have noticed that no one game was given the honor of Game of the Year this time around. And that's because I firmly believe that whatever you think your favorite Game of the Year is, that should be your Game of the Year. For me, that could easily be Astro's Playroom, Bugsnax, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, or Miles Morales. I felt that each one deserved the honor in my mind, and it was genuinely hard for me to pick just one. So I didn't. Whatever experience you enjoyed the most this year, whether new or old, honestly, that should just be the Game of the Year for you. But enough of this philosophically sort of talk for now. Let me know in the comments what your favorite games of 2020 are, or even which ones you felt others missed out on, or that deserve some more attention. And until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.